This is going to be a review of the Campark 1070 digital wildlife camera with 14 megapixel CMOS sensor. This is a very interesting camera. Primarily I got it because of the fairly narrow field of vision, allowing the objects to appear a little bit bigger and closer to the camera. Many of your wildlife cameras have a very wide field of vision, which allows things to look a little bit further away and smaller. This I use for getting closer to nests and things where I want to see within, say, a 5 or 6 foot difference, and it really allows me to concentrate in that area. So this serves this purpose. It has some nice features in that the infrared is a no glow infrared, so that's a far infrared, 940 nanometers. You look directly at it and you can't see anything, and neither can the wild animals. Even though in my experience the animals don't seem to really care too much about that. Now, but what do care about that is bad guys. And so if this is in your garage or something like that, they can't see that this is set up looking at them when it's triggered. They may hear a little click, but I don't know if that they'll hear. It's very, very faint, but they're not going to see any light coming out of that. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that the instructions are very good, and there's a lot of accessories that come along with it, but there's some inconsistencies between the instructions and the book. As I said, here it says 0.4 seconds, the book says 0.5 seconds, and along with the 14 megapixel CMOS sensor, even the book explains that anything over 8 megapixels is extrapolated. In other words, it's upscaled. They're just adding more pixels into it so it'll fill a bigger picture, and you can print it bigger if you want to, but it's going to be blurry. It's not going to be good resolution. I'm kind of leaning to this is probably a standard 5 megapixel CMOS sensor that they are adding more pixels to get the bigger pictures. Same thing goes with the 1080 size video, which is what I mostly do. Is I've noticed that it seemed to be a little blurry, not as sharp, and then you bring it back down to 720 and it's a little bit better. So it's probably an upscaled 720. Now, for my purposes, that works out fine. And this is kind of common among the under $100 cameras. This one goes usually around $70 or less dollars, and it delivers what I needed to do. So let's go ahead and open up the box. First off, you see is a beautiful camera, manual, written in several different languages on here, and a lot of detail. And there were a couple inconsistencies. One of I thought it was very interesting is that it said it could use nickel metal hydride batteries. In fact, it recommended them. And then in the camera itself, it said do not do so. And I contacted the manufacturer and they said use regular alkaline. That's pretty standard. Most cameras do not deal with the nickel metal very well because the voltage drops down too much. I can probably get away with it because I put my cameras out every night and bring them back in every night, every morning. So I can see it when the voltage is starting to drop down. Now, you probably are not going to be able to put it out for 6 months and expect to have full service with the nickel metal hydride batteries, because they do drop down to a 1.2 volt nominal voltage versus your alkalines are 1.5. So that's the reason why the standard alkalines are preferred in most cases. So here we get the camera itself, and it came with all the little covers for everything that's on here. And this is the battery compartment, and you can see that it has a standard 8 batteries in there. And right in there's a notice that says not to mix the batteries with anything else, and also use non-rechargeable batteries. One of the things that's really kind of handy for a lot of the people using these cameras is that it uses a full-size SD card, and which some people with big fingers have a little difficulty time. I'm using an adapter, so I actually have a micro SD card, but an adapter in here, and it's just easy for me to use. I usually do not take it out. I actually use the USB port here and which I find, because I'm bringing them in every single night, it's easier for me. A lot of times you can just take these out and take the cards home and put new cards in there. It's just easy for me to bring the whole thing in. Now, getting back to our box here, is we have all the goodies that came in here. Wonderful mounting brackets, especially if you wanted to use it as a security system. Comes with straps for poking around a tree, and the USB cord is right here, nice and robust. One of the things is that this has very robust hold downs for this area, and as you notice, these are very large hinge joints. They don't feel flimsy at all. These are some of the nicest ones I've seen in the trail cameras. So let's get into talking about the camera itself. One of the other things as far as batteries, it does have a nice external, uses a positive center for 6 volts, 2 amps. This is important. Sometimes people will set things up with solar. I really like, these are buttons, nice hard buttons to press on versus some of the membrane type. Like these work out really well, and it's a very well laid out menu display also. This will give you 15, 12, and 8 megapixel pictures if you're doing stills. Again, those are actually upscaled, so you're better off with the lower, probably like the 5 megapixel pixel. That's more native for the camera. The video length is amazing. You can go down from 10 seconds, like if you're just doing scouting and such, and up to 59 seconds in 1 second increments, and then it jumps up to 1, 2, and 3 minutes. It also does an interval to where you take your video, it rests for a while, and starts up again. The minimum is 5 seconds. If you're in an area with a lot of activity, you can set it all the way up to 60 minutes, where it only takes a video every hour, and anything that moves in the meantime, it is not sensitive to it at all. Bringing us to the sensitivity of the camera, they do something very interesting in here, and the sensitivity is set by the frames per second that you use on that. It goes from 1/30th, 1/20th, 1/15th frames per second. The 1/30th being the less sensitive and 1/15th being the most sensitive. I didn't see much of a difference, but your mileage may vary, as they say, on that. I've never seen another camera set things up, but you don't have a low, medium, high for this camera. It's set by the frames per second. It also does a very interesting thing where there is a timer where you can take a video for a period of time once a day. So just like most of the cameras will have a video to where you can turn it on for a period of time and or be sensitive, where the PIR, the passive infrared detector, is waiting for something to move, and it'll take a video at that particular time, and then during the daytime or outside those hours it shuts itself off. This also gives you the ability to, regardless of whether anything's moving or not, to take a video of whatever you determine the length of time. They can come in really handy when you're setting things up for construction and want to see the progress and things like that. Another interesting thing that's on here is the flash is auto adjust. So as I'm taking things that are pretty close together, you do not want to have this blow out and just everything just be whitened out with flash. This can detect that it's getting saturated and cut back down. I'm going to show you a video, a little bit of a coyote on my property where he just comes right up to the camera. Most cameras would just have him be a blur because the light would be bouncing off the animal. You can see how this adjusts to that. Usually we'll get something like that in the higher end cameras. This is something that works very well on this one. The video length, as I said before, is adjustable. Also, besides what you set it for, is if it started getting low in power, it'll cut back on the amount of video. Usually that's to really control the IRs, the infrared units, but also when you're doing that once a day type of recording, it'll only go to 4 gigabytes, and that's kind of the standard for the way the computers work, and that's why the cards that it can use. But it can go up to 29 minutes if you have it set small enough. on that. So it's a kind of handy feature to have. Let's take a look at what the setup looks like. Beautiful display on here, and you hit menu, and look at how nice and bold these are all set up. You start off with the mode for whether you want to have video or video and camera or just camera. Also the video size, as I said before, and the number of pictures that you take at once, and video length. Nice and easy use of the menu. The periodic interval, and that's the timing in between videos. And the shutter speed, that's the sensitivity. And the timestamp, I have that off. I don't really want anything else on my cameras looking at the wild animals, but oftentimes this is very helpful if you're leaving it out for longer periods of time. Some of this information is still in the metadata of the pictures that you just have to go to properties on. So, but it's right up in front on the picture if you like to have it that way too. And I also use a time switch, so I have mine set up to where it starts recording at 7 o'clock at night and shuts off at 8 o'clock in the morning and ignores everything else during the daytime. You can have a password set if you have it out in the wild and don't want this to be useless for anybody else. Serial number, also identify it. And also the flashlight, putting on auto, that's the sensitivity, so it kind of keeps the not being too bright if things get closer to you. And you can adjust the volume on recording on that, and playing back as the video on the unit. You have a nice size screen for that. And the auto power off when the screen shuts off. There's a lot of this incredible adjustment on here, and the backlight time. A lot of these are standard for all the other cameras, and this has been a very helpful camera for me for doing things with birds. Oftentimes you need to get a lot closer with them, and a lot of the wild, because of the wild angle, there's a lot of distortion, and it's usually not set up for looking at things that close. But this camera does a really good job. One, because of the small field of vision, which is, I believe it's at 49 degrees, where it's very common you get up to 140, so sometimes 3 times this. And the detector is at 50 degrees, so it's just outside the field of view, which works really nice. This is a camera that I may get another one because I do like the fact that I can use it for close-up, and of course I have several other ones that I use for animals that are further away. If you have any questions regarding this particular camera, please put them down below. I'll be happy to answer them. Again, the pluses are a lot. This is one of the most feature-packed cameras that I've seen for under $100. The negatives, the video and the pictures are really native, more 5 megapixels. So the 1080 is going to be a little blurry. 720 is good. The positive is everything's at 130 frames per second, so you have nice, smooth motion on that. And most of what I do is video. If you have any questions, please put your comments below. Please remember to subscribe and share this video to help disabled animals with donated wheelchairs.